Just a second, I need to find the prayers. Okay. Oh no, sorry, those are the wrong ones. Yeah, okay. So if you're ready. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the Sublime Mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay. Where did we get to last time? Does anyone know the page number? 53? Okay, that helps. Yeah, we went through the 6 perfections. We talked about their temporary effects. Okay, then what else did we do? Oh, we discussed Buddha nature to some degree. The 2 types of Buddha nature, what are they?
Sense and nature of
Yeah, so the mind itself, the mental consciousness itself, and the emptiness of the mental consciousness. Yeah. Why is the emptiness of the mental consciousness said to be Buddha nature, or in other words, the potential to become a Buddha?
because this is a base for becoming a Buddha.
It's the base for becoming a Buddha, but what is it about Buddha nature? What is it about the fact that our mental consciousness, which is the main mind, the principal mind we have in terms of like sense consciousnesses, they are secondary. It's our mental consciousness that's most important. That's the one that transforms, that's the one we enhance. But not only is that mental consciousness said to be Buddha nature, so it's that mind which transforms to become the mind of a Buddha. Not only that, but even the lack of intrinsic existence, the fact that our mind doesn't exist the way it appears to us as something independent, solid, intrinsically there, right? Why is that also Buddha nature? Well, because without it, our mind couldn't change. It couldn't transform. If our mind existed the way it appears to us, as that independent entity in and of itself existent, doesn't need another mind or doesn't need anything else to exist, it couldn't change. It couldn't change at all. And it's through understanding the emptiness of the mind, it's through understanding the lack of intrinsic existence of the mind and of all other phenomena that it does transform. That is the mind that realizes emptiness directly. It removes all the faults of the mind that are not in the nature of the mind. And again, why are they not in the nature of the mind? Because the mind lacks inherent existence. So the mind that gives rise, what gives rise to our afflictions? What gives rise to our anger, to our aversion, arrogance, jealousy, all these afflictions, the mind that believes there's intrinsic existence, right? It's that wrong consciousness that believes we exist in a way in which we don't. And all that gives rise to our afflictions. So emptiness of our mind is really important. Emptiness of everything is really important. So the lack of this intrinsic independent existence, which we call emptiness. Okay. All right. And then we talk about, we already went through the praise to the ultimate expanse. That's Arya Nagarjuna's text on Buddha nature. And he also talked about the path. He described the path by saying we first need to generate bodhicitta, or the awakening mind, on the basis of going for refuge. So we discussed refuge a little bit. Then the 10 perfections, they actually enhance our Buddha nature. They enhance the mental consciousness. And in that way, well, the emptiness, not really. It's the mental consciousness itself. That's also our Buddha nature. And then it also discusses the 10 grounds. So again, to summarize, as part of understanding what Chandrakirti is going to talk about. So Lama Tsongkhapa takes his time. He gives a lot of preliminary explanations saying that Acharya Chandrakirti's text, which we mainly study here, it doesn't just talk about emptiness, it doesn't just talk about the ultimate nature of all phenomena, but it also talks about the method aspect. And where did Acharya Chandrakirti take these teachings from? Did he just make them up? No. He again relied on Arya Nagarjuna. However, not on his fundamental wisdom, which is really just about emptiness, but he relied on the precious garland by Arya Nagarjuna. He relied on the praise to the ultimate expanse, which he introduced which we went through last time. It's also introduced here. And lastly, the compendium of sutras. So all of these have been translated into English. Precious Garland, that at least 2 translations. Praise to the ultimate expanse, that has been translated. And then the compendium of, what's it called? The compendium of sutras. I've mentioned it somewhere. I think the translation. Last time I looked for it as well. I don't remember where it is now. But you'll find a footnote with the translation. So we can all read them, but we don't need to. The good news is it's hard to understand, so we can just read Acharya Chandrakirti's text, because it basically puts all these points together in this text. So anyway, just to get to know these texts, nevertheless get to know them a little better, in elaborating on this rough summary of the body of the path. So this is again Lama Tsongkhapa speaking, that's Lama Tsongkhapa's text. In elaborating on this rough summary of the body of the path, so what preceded this passage, Nagarjuna speaks in his compendium of sutras about how finding a life of leisure and opportunity, as well as finding faith in the teaching, are difficult. And how, compared to these, generating the awakening mind is even more difficult to achieve. He also provides extensive explanations of topics such as how attaining great compassion for sentient beings is difficult, and how, compared to all the things mentioned earlier, it is even more difficult to achieve the elimination of the karmic obscuration born of injuring a bodhisattva. Then elimination of the thought of disparaging them, elimination of the acts of Mara, and elimination of the deed of abandoning sublime Dharma. What does that mean? Oh, like a long list of things. So I'll explain all of them. So he's just saying, well, we should give our best. Again, as like last time I talked about it, be confident, be bold and all that. We can all do it, but don't expect it to be super easy. And there's certain things that are more difficult than others. Things that we're not really aware of usually, like injuring a bodhisattva. What's so bad about that? Disparaging them, and so forth. So there are a few things that you may have heard about, I'm not sure. Well, first of all, it talks about this opportunity we have, this life we have right now. Of course, I think you've heard about the leisures and opportunities before, but again, I mention them because we may not be able to list them. We maybe know one or two, and it's all about listening with a different kind of mind. It's not about accumulating information, but more about taking to heart what Lama Tsongkhapa teaches. So that's why I'm mentioning them. And I think it's a great antidote to, well, I'm not talking about clinical depression. I mean, that's like no way it's going to help. But sometimes when we're just low about the stuff we're doing and, things are just, I'm missing this and I don't have that and so forth. So maybe reflecting on some of these may be helpful. So let's see. I just listed them briefly. Anyway, so this passage, this is now the explanation. So this passage explains how Arya Nagarjuna in his Compendium of Sutras, so the third of these important texts, expounds upon what had earlier been given as a rough summary of the Bodhisattva path in the Precious Garland and the Praise to the Ultimate Expanse. So Precious Garland, just briefly, a few verses that we went through and not that much explanation. It was pretty short. And then the Praise to the Ultimate Expanse, they were relatively short. Those earlier texts, they outline the essentials, the 6 perfections and their results, the way they are practiced in union with great compassion, the role of refuge as the foundation for bodhicitta, then how the 10 perfections enhance Buddha nature, and the 10 grounds as the stages of the Bodhisattva's progress. All right, so we've heard all this. We've basically heard we can all do this. It sounds very technical when you read this here, but in the end, when we went through it, it's not like practices we couldn't do. We can all do them to some degree. Together, they provide a concise sketch of the body of the path, so the path to enlightenment. The Compendium of Sutras then elaborates this outline by spelling out in detail the relative difficulties involved in traversing along the path. So just talking about certain difficulties that may be interesting because, well, we know already it's difficult, but also avoiding certain things makes it so much easier. There's just a few things because they create such obstacles in our mind. It may be good just to know about them, what really puts like huge obstacles onto the path, basically. So that's good to know. It emphasizes that even the basic conditions for practicing the Dharma are difficult to attain. And we have already attained them. It's very difficult to get the basics, but we have already the basics. So to be like, wow, I shouldn't waste it. One of these conditions is what the scriptures call a precious human rebirth. I mean, first of all, we are human. But just being human is not such a big deal. I mean, lots of humans, 8 billion right now, and in other places as well. There are humans, of course, from a Buddhist point of view, there are humans all over the universe, so not a big deal. But we have some special qualities besides being human. So first, all the leisures and opportunities are given that don't just refer to a precious human rebirth, they also refer to being born human. So there are 8 leisures, 8 kind of freedoms from certain states, which actually refer to 8 unfavorable states from which we as practitioners are free. So if we're already practicing, I don't know to what degree, but even if we're not thinking, wow, I've got all these opportunities, that may actually encourage us and prevent us from being depressed, like, if I were just this, if I just was that, if I were Tibetan, or if I were, had done this or that. And they all could pretty much prevent us from really practicing. Oh, in my next life. But who knows, what the next life brings. So better start now, because if you check all of them, they're all true for us. Okay, so the first 4 states are states of being born in realms other than the human, while the next 4 are states that occur within human existence. Okay, first of all, the 4 unfavorable states of being born in a realm other than human would be a hellish existence, yeah, well, again, thinking or being aware that the mind or nothing exists independently of the mind, right? Then hellish existences. This is interesting because here we can bring in like modern science, I guess, or to a certain degree, experiences people have had, and no one can really explain them. Which are when people fall into comas, for instance, or if they have, like if they're in a coma, or they kind of lose, what's the word? Yeah, lose consciousness or whatever. So they have these experiences that when they awake from the coma, no one can explain it. Can explain it. So, for instance, I mentioned this person before. There was a neuroscientist who developed meningitis, and he fell into a coma, and was not brain dead, but there was not much activity in his brain. But he underwent these hellish experiences, and for him that lasted for a really long time. He had no sense of time. So like, I don't know, when you were little, when we were children, we had no sense of time. And we didn't know how long it was until Christmas. We knew Christmas was special. But I remember asking my parents, like, how long until Christmas? How often do I have to sleep? My nieces and nephew asked me that, like, how many more times do I have to sleep until it's Christmas or until we take a vacation? So no sense of time. It starts off with like sleeping. That kind of seems to help. How many times you go to bed and wake up? Okay, that may 20 times. Oh my God, that's so long. But like a sense, anything takes forever because no sense of time. Now this neuroscientist, he said he reported back that he had no sense of time. It was just horrible. No sense of who he was. He had totally forgotten who he was. No sense of that. No language. And these weird appearances. He even made like a video of it, like trying to give us a sense, like kind of like not like a cartoon, but like just these weird shapes. And it was so, and sometimes we have nightmares, don't we, when we're like caught in something. It's not something disgusting in and of itself, but it feels scary. So he had this experience. He was only in a coma for 10 days, but it felt like forever. And in the text, they call that a temporary hell. I mean, I don't even know whether it qualifies to be called that, if the suffering was enough. But for him, that was real. For the rest of his family, it was 10 days, big deal. But for him, it may have felt like forever. And I also remember a friend of mine once told me he met a woman who had some memories of before she was born. It's interesting because someone posted in the group, I think it was Banu, posting in the group about this child who could remember being in the womb of their mother. And children who remember past lives, they oftentimes said, yeah, and then I was born to you or something. They have these, then I became all black and then suddenly I was, you were there kind of idea. And they all seem to report that. But I remember this friend of mine told me about this girl he knew, and this girl said that she remembered a previous existence that was so gray and so sad and so terrible. It was like this endless suffering, right? It was very real for her. And then she was born as a human being. And so the person, she like this friend of mine, and being a Buddhist, she said, well, maybe that was some kind of hellish kind of existence. I mean, it's real for that person. Even right now, we can have hellish existences if you have some problems, some anxiety and so forth, it's hellish. But there are even states that are not said to be human where you can experience that. So whether you undergo extreme and unrelenting suffering, whether from burning heat, freezing cold, or violent torment, anyway, so your body and mind is completely consumed by pain. And that's possible as a result of past actions, of creating incredible suffering for others. Then eventually it comes back, and this is your reality, right? And who's to say this is more real or less real than what someone else? And it can take a long time. It can feel like a really long time. It's quite interesting because they do talk about the span of time. Like if it's a day in the human realm, it can be like 50 years for them. So again, kind of giving a sense, that's just relative. I mean, of course, we know time is relative. And so for, you being caught in that, it's just the length of time, well, it's not objective time, but like the time we spent one day here in this existence, it feels like 50 to them. I mean, think about it, we're so lucky we don't have that. If you really think about experiencing that, and also like hellish existences. I remember reading about a little child that was born as a human child, was born, and there was some nerve disorder, and the experience the child has was that of being burned alive. How terrible! So that was the child was screaming because it was experiencing what we would experience, and of course there was no fire. But what's the difference? Actually being burned or experiencing the pain is the same. Of course, the horror of kind of your body disintegrating, okay, you don't experience that. However, it lasts really long. And unfortunately, the doctors couldn't do anything for the child, and eventually the child passed away. I mean, the baby passed away. But imagine, we don't have that. We don't have there. I mean, they're hellish disease. We don't have that. So even not believing in this hellish, but still, yeah, you can think of hell on earth as a human. So just think, wow, I don't have that. How lucky I am. Preta beings. So pretas are sometimes called hungry ghosts. It's such a funny word, ghosts. I prefer pretas, to be honest. It's just a word they use from the English. So they're actually beings totally driven by insatiable craving. They experience unbearable hunger, thirst, and constant dissatisfaction. Their lives revolve around deprivation. Deprivation is deprivation. What is it? Deprivation. They revolve around deprivation, leaving them unable to turn their thoughts towards spiritual practice. So their minds are so preoccupied with always getting this, getting that. Think about, like, sometimes we're also driven, right? We're driven, like something we want so badly, like we have no space in our mind to do anything meaningful. So that feels bad enough, and usually it doesn't last too long. So think there's actually an existence where you experience that for a really long period of time. Oh, I'm so fortunate not to have that. Or on earth, you know, like people who are never satisfied. Or never, whatever they get, you know, they want something so badly and then they have it and they're like, what's next? And there's no time. They're busy shopping, they're busy ordering stuff online, or I don't know, getting a new, you know, there was one person, that's their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and then they move on to the next. Never enough. Or I don't know, they work on Wall Street and, you know, make plenty of money, but someone always has more, so they want more and more, and their entire lives just driven by that greed. Oh, how lucky we're not that. Again, good reason to be so happy. Animals. I mean, yeah, like, I think dolphins, it's cute, you know, like, looks like nice to be, but I don't want to be a dolphin. Or birds, you know, like, in the past I used to think, I want to be a bird. I don't want to be a bird now. I used to think it was so nice, just, you know, looking at everything just from above, so pretty, and get a worm every now and then, and be happy. But honestly, look at these birds. I like always like someone after me, someone catch it, like always scared, you know. And then they out in the cold. I want to be a bird when the sun is out and it's pretty, right? And it's warm. You know, what do you do in the winter? So the point is basically, yeah, animals. Well, first of all, they lack the mental capacity and freedom necessary to understand and practice the Dharma. But even just to get enough food when there's a famine and so forth. I mean, they can't plan ahead the way we do usually. And their lives are governed by survival instincts, seeking food, shelter, and safety rather than higher reflection. So again, very difficult to be an animal. Maybe there's some exceptions, but yeah. And then there's celestial beings. It sucks to be a celestial being. Well, we shouldn't learn too much about it because we'd be like, wow, I want to be one of them. That sounds like fun. I mean, they're in areas. I mean, have you ever thought about the fact that you have to take a shower? That sucks as well. That this body starts getting really smelly. Unless you do all this stuff for it. Isn't that annoying? Right? You don't constantly take a bath. Sooner or later, it turns into something really gross. I mean, we like to take showers just because it's so gross before that. Pardon? Brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth. And then you eat. Prepare that wonderful meal. And then it's gone. You work like an hour or two, and then in 5 minutes it's gone, and then you start the whole thing over again. Right? I mean, so much time. And in these realms, they say, I mean, we think like, what is normal is the human realm. Right? That seems normal, and everything else doesn't seem normal. But you know, like the other day I was talking to Silke, we were talking, isn't it funny that we think what is normal is Germany? Trees are normal if they look like German trees. Food is normal if it tastes like, and then we come from different areas and we realize we kind of eat different food. So the thing is like, what seems normal is where I come from. The 4 seasons, the way I experience them, I mean, the Australians, they're just the wrong way around. And South Africa anyway, right? Because their summer is winter and their winter is summer, so that's really... And you have 4 seasons. You do. And you have snow in the winter and you have, right? And the birds make certain sounds. That is for me normal. Now, okay, I lived in India long enough that for me, India is not normal. The new normal, there's a monsoon, okay. But the thing is, yeah, it's really funny how... for the longest time, for me, a normal thing was what I grew up with. And so we can take it to the human realm. That is normal. It is normal to get smelly. It's normal to have to eat 3 times or whatever, many times, to drink and sleep. Sleep. It is 7 or 8 hours wasted. Right? The stuff you could do. You just lie there not doing anything. And if you don't do it, if you feel so crappy. Think about it, really. Yeah? So actually, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that sucks here. And if you think like that, when they describe these celestial realms, they're like, you don't smell. You don't have to take a shower. You've got a pure body. You don't have to eat. And if you want to eat, and sometimes you eat, you think of the food and it's right there. Wow, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, so you don't smell, you don't have all that, you don't have to sleep. There's no night. I mean, now we think it's normal, we like the night, but if it wasn't there, wouldn't it be nice? Right, if you think about it. So I've read texts about this. So it's like, wow, first you go like, nah, it's not what we do in Germany. But then I'm thinking, all these endless doing this and that, it's tiresome, and then there's no water, or then you've got dry skin, and then you got water skin, and you have a shower, you feel because your skin is dry, and then it sucks, So then the human, in this realm, it's like, wow, it just manifests. People are just kind. Everyone is kind. No one is unkind. Everyone is friendly. People don't feel lonely. I mean, I shouldn't say people, celestial beings. So in a way, wow, great. Wouldn't I just want to have we take vacations on these Club Meds or something. This is much better than Club Med. It's like you don't have to pay for your wonderful food. You just think of it and it's there. Anyway, so it's, especially in the West, we like to take these vacations, like indulgent kind of, some people do, right? I hate to go to Delhi even taking a vacation, it seems too much. But anyway, so taking these amazing vacations, being spoiled, the celestial is much greater. But too much bliss, too much beauty is not good for Dharma practice. So we're so lucky we're not in them. Right? So the celestial realms enjoy long lives filled with bliss, beauty, and pleasure. Again, from a particular type of mind, that's their experience. But this abundance distracts them from the Dharma, absorbed in indulgence or the rapture of meditative absorption. Some of them have these deep states of absorptions. There's a feeling of bliss, of just being absorbed in that state. Waste of time, unfortunately. Which by themselves do not lead to liberation from cyclic existence. So they feel no urgency to practice until their merit, the positive potential that they accumulated in order to be reborn there, is exhausted, and they fall to lower realms. Right? Because every pleasure we experience, it's kind of like you're losing your merit on the bank. Right? I mean, I used the example of merit before. I used the analogy for money. In the same way as for material, in order to fulfill our material wishes, we need money, right? Material wishes, we need money. What do we need for our spiritual wishes? Positive karma, positive potential. It's like it enables us to do the things we want to do, right? To especially when we practice the Dharma. So we talk about positive potential. And actually, like a good practitioner of the Dharma, they don't want to unnecessarily waste merit, right? Stay in a fancy hotel. I mean, you have to pay for it, of course, physically, but you also exhaust that possible. So if you have all this comfort and you just constantly want comfort and you don't reimburse that merit, eventually be gone. So that's the idea. If you're born in these celestial realms, you exhaust a lot of this positive potential. All the virtuous actions we've accumulated, they basically ripen in these states, but you don't want to waste them. Or you make sure you replenish them. At least replenish them, not reimburse, but that's the wrong word. Replenish them, like make sure you again accumulate new virtue. Anyway, we're lucky we're not in those happy states. We're happy, I mean, we're human, it's a healthy measure of suffering and happiness. And many of us, that suffering is important, not as a goal to always suffer. No, that's not the goal. And we discussed it before, right? Some people say when they've never come to the Dharma, when they're new to the Dharma, I mentioned this before, but for those who weren't here, they say, when you tell them about Buddhism and, you know, be free from suffering, they say, I don't want to be free from suffering. I think suffering is important. But then when you watch them, they try everything to avoid suffering. So if suffering were that important, they would allow themselves to, you know, experience more. Drive to a country where you can help people who have a lot of problems and experience the same problems. People don't do that, not because they don't want to help others. They'd rather send $1,000 to the people in those countries instead of driving there or traveling there themselves, because it's not nice. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. But then they're saying suffering is good. Trying everything to avoid it, right? So anyway, the point is, therefore, in the meantime, it is good to have certain suffering, because usually it inspires us to practice. It inspires us to look beyond our ordinary life. Like people who suddenly get terribly sick, the stuff that they ordinarily enjoy, that they preoccupy themselves with, just, you know, fun and parties and so forth, if that's what they do, it loses its meaning and they look further. So that suffering is very meaningful. Anyway, but then even within the human existence, now we're born human, but we're not born in places without the Dharma. Right? Okay, even if you come from a different country, but nowadays it's accessible. It's available. Like you can, I don't know, get books and so forth. You may not be born in a Buddhist country, but it doesn't matter. So in regions where the Buddha's teachings are unknown or unavailable, beings may be open to spiritual practice, yet never encounter the Dharma. Without guidance, refuge, or genuine practices, they remain trapped in cyclic existence. So if you live in a country where you have no access, or where it's maybe illegal to practice the Dharma, for some countries you're not allowed to be a Buddhist, for instance. So you have to keep a secret. Holding strong wrong views. So people with strong wrong views, oh gosh, how terrible, right? Like believing, if I just do whatever I like, I'll be okay. If I just be selfish, I'll be okay. I mean, some people hold these extreme views to behave in a terrible way, fighting wars with other countries and believing that brings them happiness. Gosh, they're totally on the wrong way. I mean, we're so lucky we don't have any of these views, right? Think about it. We're open to, well, this here, people with strong views here, they deny the law of karma, cause and effect. They don't believe that their terrible actions have any consequences. Instead, they believe it brings them happiness. So how terrible. Do I want to be one of them? No way. So really, we need to feel that. It's not about just intellectually, but wow, I'm so lucky. I'm not one of these people who think just money makes them happy, or more power makes them happy, or whatever, having a great reputation makes me happy. I mean, all that meaningless stuff. So people with strong views deny the law of karma and cause and effect, with strong wrong views. Deny cause and effect, inner transformation, or the possibility of liberation. Such distorted convictions obstruct them from just hearing about the Dharma and often lead them to mislead others as well. Right? No interest. So lucky we have this method. Right? And it's not about being a Buddhist, it's just about applying these methods. That's most important. No one cares whether you join the club or not, the Buddhist club or not. It's not about that. It's about applying these methods instead of, I don't know, methods that just don't bring any peace and happiness. Born at a time without a Buddha. If we were born at a time now, if it was a time now, if no Buddha has appeared or the Dharma has completely vanished, beings lack access to authentic teachings. Even with intelligence and good intentions, they cannot find the path that leads to liberation and awakening. So without a Buddha teaching the path to awakening, how are we going to figure it out? No way we will. Right? So someone must have taught it as well. Of course, there can be some exceptions, but in general, yeah, if we never encountered, if we were now born in a different world where a Buddha has not appeared, very difficult. Okay, there's a formatting error. I put a space in there. That was a mistake. Or we're born mentally impaired or without cognitive capacity. So certain physical impairments, certain ones, I mean, certain impairments that don't make any difference. But there are certain types of impairments, maybe mental disabilities or a lack of cognitive capacity, prevent beings from understanding or engaging with the teachings. I mean, if you're someone like Helen Keller, we've all heard of Helen Keller, right? She was born blind and deaf. I mean, she'd be okay. She made the best out of her situation, and she would probably, yeah, I mean, especially nowadays. But that doesn't mean it's true for everyone. I mean, some people, I mean, being blind is not. Being deaf, you can still do all this. But I mean, of course, certain mental diseases where you don't have the cognitive capacity, then that's very difficult. Yeah, so Helen Keller is a very famous, she was American, right? Yeah, an American woman. When was she born? Like 100 years ago? Like around 100?
I think the 1920s, I think.
1920s. Oh yeah, so about 100 years ago, yeah. So she was born blind and deaf, but she found this incredible teacher who taught her to sign language using, like you taught the other person's hand, and then she signed into the hand, and in that way she learned how to communicate and stuff. So there's a book about it, there's a movie about it, very beautiful. And she became really famous. She became an author, didn't she? She even wrote books. Yeah, she learned Braille and she wrote books. Yeah.
She changed the thinking of deaf and dumb. You know,
Pardon?
People who were deaf and dumb
Yes.
didn't think.
Right.
She really changed that.
That perception. Yeah, very important. That's a very good point. Thank you, Cindy. Exactly. Like 100 years ago, people thought if you were deaf and dumb, you also were stupid, right? Or you couldn't see and so forth. But she changed that perception. Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. Helen Keller, yeah. Anyway, but we don't have any of these obstacles. I mean, yeah, I keep saying we have all mental diseases, right? I keep saying I'm an addict, I have OCD, I have autism, I have all these. In comparison to a Buddha, I have all of these. In fact, I recognize myself. I said that so many times. I hear about someone who has got any of these, and I watch documentaries about it sometimes. There's one called Mad But Glad. And when they describe, it's really good one. It's a really good documentary where these people with different mental impairments, if you or mental diseases, they live together, and a group of psychologists has to figure out what's their problem. But they also among each other they learn. No, but it's nice. It's really like putting an understanding they're just like us, basically, with some extreme kind of habits sometimes. But you can recognize yourself within them. So it's like to lessen the distance between like this is kind of like, oh, them and us, and understand, oh, we're pretty much the same. And whenever I hear and read about this, I recognize myself. I'm an addict. I'm absolutely an addict. Not alcohol and but food and pleasure and lots of things. I'm very much addicted. And what else? I'm addicted to, and OCD, right? I've got my own OCD. Yeah, certain things that I need to do, like not in the same way, but not being able to control my attachment and so forth. And in that way, again, I can't give you, it's not like I have to knock on my door 3 times, not in that way. But sometimes I can't be sticky when I go to bed. Can't be sticky. After a long sticky day, I cannot I have to have a shower. So, right? I don't think a Buddha would, have a problem with that one. And so forth and so on. So many examples. I'm emotionally a wreck. I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're feeling. If I was a Buddha, I knew exactly what you're feeling. I could read you the way I could read my own mind and give you exactly the right teaching. So I can't. I'm just kind of guessing. Maybe that's helpful, maybe not. So you see, in comparison to a Buddha, I have every single mental problem. But I still function well enough that I can practice the Dharma. So there's certain sicknesses, in particular when you have cognitive, and now it becomes difficult, right? So again, we can all do it. We don't have, I'm not saying you can, if you have certain problems, of course, you can all practice the Dharma, but they're more severe ones. That's the point. That prevent us from really practicing. So, understanding these freedoms. Yeah, we may not have this, and we may not have that, and we may be lacking this and lacking that, and may not be Tibetan, and we don't have a Lama who takes us by the hand and tells us exactly what to do, which, again, who wants that? We're so individualistic. Yeah, but the thing is, you hear people saying, I can't really practice because I don't have a Lama who tells me exactly what to do. And then if you ask a little further, you sure you want someone to tell you what to do? Are you going to do it? Maybe. Right? You have Milarepa, Mapar, you have Mapar himself telling you to build 5 towers and tear them down again. Purify all that negative karma, do it over and over. Are you going to do it? Look what Milarepa did. Incredible. Are we really ready for that? But this is I only practice when I find that Lama, it takes me by the hand and tells me how wonderful I am. Instead of trying to destroy my ego, first bring it up to the surface and then cut it. Bring it up to the first, it's painful, right? So there's always a sense, I can start, if I had all these conditions together, if I found a super quiet place, but then we feel so miserable because there's no sound. We're so used to sound. We feel lonely, right? The point is, therefore, always excuses, but if we have the list of these 8, we're okay. We're incredible. We have such incredible opportunities already. We've got all these freedoms. And then the 10 opportunities. And so they're a little bit repetitive, but you look at some of them are included in the former 8. So not repetitive, but they're included in the former 8. But now you look at them from the point of view of being favorable conditions. So the 10 opportunities refer to 10 favorable conditions as human beings that make Dharma practice possible. These are traditionally divided into 5 personal and 5 circumstantial opportunities which, when combined with the 8 leisures, define the full meaning of a precious human rebirth. So 5 personal opportunities, we're born human. Again, human life offers the rare balance of suffering and intelligence that makes Dharma practice both necessary and possible. Suffering, happiness, and intelligence, I should put there, because it's not just, we need also a certain degree of happiness and well-being. So a rare balance of suffering, happiness, and intelligence that makes Dharma practice both necessary and possible. It provides both the freedom and the mental capacity to study, reflect, and cultivate the path. Right? Also, we're born in a central place. So, born in a central place. We're born in a central place, which means being born where the Buddha's teachings are present. Literally, it means in a place where the Dharma is actually part of the culture. Traditionally, that's what it meant. It makes sense because in the past, if we were born at the other end of the world, far from a Buddhist country, very difficult to get there. But nowadays it's like so easy to get from one place to the other. I mean, traveling to come to India, that's like what? A day, 2 at the most, doesn't take long. So in a way we are born in a central place. So being born where the Buddha's teachings are present and accessible ensures that the path can be studied and practiced. Without this, even highly intelligent, motivated humans cannot find authentic guidance. Again, we have it accessible. I mean, Dharma is accessible to us. With all faculties intact, again, having unimpaired senses and mental capacity makes it possible to study, contemplate, and meditate. If these faculties are damaged or absent, engaging meaningfully with the Dharma becomes extremely difficult, or in some cases, even impossible. I remember a German girl, she once traveled here, she was living in Japan, and she met one student of one classmate of one of my teachers from here. This man lived in Japan, he used to be a monk, and he was the classmate of one of my teachers. And so he had told her about Dharamsala, and she came here. She was blind. But it was challenging. She came here and she lived in this building. And because I also lived in that building, I was asked to look after her. And so we became friends. I would always go to see her. I would buy her stuff. I would sometimes cook for her. We also found someone who could cook for her all the time because I was studying. I couldn't do it all the time. And she went down to the library. So I found people who would take her down to the library for classes and come up again. But it was difficult. It was difficult. I mean, the taxis didn't stop. She had a stick, to be able to, like a blind, what do you call that? Yeah, like the stick that you have when you're blind. So she was able to kind of move around, but it was really dangerous with the car. And people basically took her by the hand and took her down to the library and up again. She had one advantage though. A very important advantage. Oh, it was the best advantage. Because His Holiness, of course, at some point knew she was blind. So I took her to an audience with His Holiness, and he was so kind to her. Because she couldn't see His Holiness, he hugged her. And every time His Holiness walked past her, he hugged her. So people were like around her. Including myself. It's like you wanted to be in her presence. So she always had like a crowd of people. So she was not alone. That was nice. And when His Holiness came, His Holiness, I saw it once. He walked on the other side. He came out of the temple for a teaching. He walked to the other side. He saw her. He walked over and he gave her the biggest hug. And he, touched. Oh, it was so beautiful. And once they told me the people who took her down to the classes, His Holiness drove past, stopped the car, opened the window, took her hand and gave her the best audience. Oh, so beautiful. So that was incredible. However, it was hard for her. It was really hard. Going to classes, she learned Tibetan. Well, Braille, there's no Braille in Tibetan, she learned Tibetan. She had a beautiful voice, so she sang sometimes. That was beautiful. But it was really tough. And one day she had to leave. I think her visa was up, her visa had expired, and she had to leave, and she never came back. I don't know what happened to her. Yeah, so it was tough. And oftentimes she cried and she was unhappy because it was so difficult. Sweet girl, very sweet, but it was very, very hard for her. And it was also difficult for her to communicate because she couldn't see people. So when she talked, she was like looking always up and she shouted just to be sure that everyone hears her. So it was really hard for her just to talk to someone. She was just shouting in the direction she thought someone was. So we talked differently, and some people thought that was very irritating. Didn't realize that when you're blind. Of course, when you sat with her in a room, but still, she always talked quite loudly to be able to be heard. And so some people found that was difficult. Yeah, really tough. So anyway, having all faculties intact, that definitely helps. Not having committed the 5 heinous crimes or heinous deeds, as they sometimes called. So we have avoided the gravest actions. We didn't kill our mother, our father, an arhat, or shedded the Buddha's blood, or causing a schism in the Sangha. Those are considered to be extreme obstacles, because they prevent rebirth in states where Dharma practice is impossible. So we would know if we did it in this life. We didn't do it in this life. In our previous life, we didn't, because we are in a place where Dharma practice is possible. It can be purified, but it's difficult to do so. So they leave behind very extreme heavy karmic obstructions, which make progress on the path exceedingly difficult until they're purified. And then having faith in the Dharma. Faith, even if it's blind faith, is still okay. We talk about faith a little bit later on, but even if we have some faith in the Dharma, it's an entry point for all Dharma practice. Right? I mean, Tibetans, they have such faith in the Dharma. They believe 100% it's all true. And so it's good to practice. Not everyone does, and not everyone has that faith. But it's actually a good entry point. Blind faith is actually not a good idea, but if you have nothing, it's still better to have that, right? So whatever its form, and we talk about it, it opens the heart to the teachings and inspires sincere engagement with them. We have all that to some degree. And then 5 circumstantial opportunities. The Buddha has appeared in the world. Okay, the teachings have been given. The Buddha has taught the Dharma. Buddha has taught the Dharma. So a Buddha has not only appeared, but has also shared the Dharma through words and example. And without this compassionate act of teaching, beings would have no knowledge of how to progress. The Dharma still remains. The teachings do not last forever. Once they vanish, the chance to engage with them disappears. It's difficult. If there's no one practicing, the teachings are gone. What does it mean the teachings exist? The books are not what it means. That doesn't mean the teachings exist. The books are just books. Maybe 1,000 years from now, you get a book like that and you go, no eye, no ear, no nose. Oh, rubbish. Right? You get the Heart Sutra and it says, no eye, no ear. No one understands it. The Dharma still, what does the Dharma mean? That people still live it. They're beings who embody the Dharma. They're examples. And they inspire us. They can teach us and they can inspire us. So in that way, the Dharma is still around. There are practitioners who uphold the Dharma. Okay, so of course there are practitioners, authentic teachers and practitioners preserve the lineage and keep the teachings alive. Their example shows clearly how the Dharma is to be studied and applied. And they're benefactors. They're people supporting Dharma practice. Material and social support allows practitioners to devote time to study, contemplation and meditation. Without such benefactors, even those with faith and understanding would struggle to sustain their practice. So we're so lucky. All of those are there in our case. Right? We want to really practice sincerely. There'll be sooner or later, there'll be people supporting us. There's no way. There's definitely people, it's like, if you, I don't know, you practice sincerely, there won't be any problem sooner or later. But it's about really giving our best, but not doing too much, of course, the burnout or something. Taken together, the 8 leisures and 10 opportunities describe the rare and extraordinary condition of a precious human rebirth that is so difficult to obtain. So there's so few people who are interested in the Dharma. Think about it. I mean, just being culturally Buddhist doesn't mean you're interested in the Dharma. I mean, to really study it, reflect on it, meditate on it, make it part of your life, instead of just going to a temple every blue moon, every full moon. Yeah. So that's quite difficult. To possess such a life means being free from the most obstructive states, while also having the necessary conditions to enter and progress in the practice of the Dharma. And I think I've also said that before, maybe in a different context. I remember when I first met the Dharma here in India, here in Dharamsala, and I was like, wow. I still had lots of questions and I had doubts, but I thought it was so amazing. Doing a few courses and eventually thinking of becoming a nun. And I thought, wow, I go home. My parents asked me to go home once before becoming a nun because they wanted me to be sure that's what I really wanted. So I agreed. I went home for a month or 2. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to tell all my friends about this. You know, I had like a group of friends that I hung out with many years at high school. So like girlfriends, but also some guys that I was friendly with. So we had like a little group. And I was like, I'm going to tell them. And they weren't interested at all. Everything so far we had in common. They liked similar music, they had similar tastes, they even liked going traveling, but they didn't do it. But except that they were like, oh, this is nice if I could, if my parents, you know, they supported everything. But the Dharma was really weird. They didn't know what I was talking about. I remember I talked to my friend, my best friend, about, like, we were always in agreement. But this, she was like, no, that doesn't make any sense to me. Or it was like, yeah, sounds nice, but nah. I remember that very clearly. So I was like, huh? It's the first time I felt like all the people I grew up with, totally different. And then even like where I live now, no one is interested in the Dharma. Like no one. Like during COVID, it was like, I'm on a different star. I'm like an alien. I want to meet some like-minded people. Because where I live, there's none. Even those who said, oh, Buddhism's really nice religion. That was it. Did they ever read a book or listen to a teaching? No, they weren't interested enough. So it's like, there's so few people. So few people. Yeah, they're all the Tibetans, but they're just 6 million. And not all of them practice the Dharma. So we're really like a small group. Yeah. So it's kind of, it would be nice if the whole world did it, but it's just not the case. Yeah, unfortunately. All right. So these are really difficult to get. We're so fortunate. Just in terms of numbers, it shows there are not that many people. All right. And then the next thing that is difficult to get is faith in the Dharma. Now, what does it even mean, faith? That doesn't seem to be a very popular word, right? Faith in the Dharma. Have faith. Sounds so Christian. Well, first of all, let's go through it. So according to Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutras, the second basic condition for practicing the Dharma, which is difficult to attain, is faith in the teaching. In particular, discerning faith. Blind faith, okay, but even better than that is discerning faith. So there are 3 kinds of faith. They'll come up again later, but of the 3 kinds of faith that will be explained below, this one is often translated as believing faith. Believing faith, believing in something, is a trusting confidence, in this case in the Buddha's teaching, that arises from thoughtful examination that both inspires and sustains practice. All right? So we know certain things. We don't need faith in things that we know. But do you know there's reincarnation? No. We don't know there's reincarnation. Do you know that all your actions have consequences? No, it's too subtle. Do you know every atom in this cup? No. Do you have faith? Do you believe there are atoms in this? Yeah. Right? Is it blind faith? No. I mean, we studied some physics and, some guys with fancy PhDs have kind of basically, we believe it. Okay. So, therefore, that kind of discerning faith, it's not blind. It's really based on, not just because someone says so, but it makes sense and we have some basic understanding. So that's really important when it comes to the Dharma. The Four Noble Truths, we don't fully understand them, but we have some understanding. Although faith in general was already included among the 10 opportunities described above, Arya Nagarjuna highlights it separately here, possibly to stress the distinctive importance of discerning faith. That's really important. So just blind faith is very unreliable. Discerning faith, that's important. Unlike blind faith, which accepts something simply because, for example, the Buddha said it, discerning faith is rooted in analysis and reflection. It has 2 key features. It is based on reasoning and it is provisional, temporary. Okay. Based on reasoning, well, again, discerning faith is grounded in analysis and reflection, as the Buddha himself advised. He said, examine my words as a goldsmith tastes gold. Don't just accept them. Such faith arises from a clear understanding of topics such as cause and effect. The Four Noble Truths and emptiness. When these are examined and confirmed through both reasoning and personal experience, They withstand doubt and give rise to a faith that is stable and resilient. So until we come to a fast and understanding, right now, cause and effect, I have some sense. Four Noble Truth, emptiness, some understanding, but not, it's mainly based on faith. But also, it has to be provisional. Discerning faith serves as a starting point rather than the final goal. The goal is not to have faith. The Buddha doesn't have faith. The Buddha knows, right? It inspires in practitioners the wish to practice until it is gradually replaced by clear understanding. For example, when faith in impermanence, emptiness, or reincarnation develops into a conceptual realization and later into a direct realization. That's the point. It's not just to have faith forever. It's just until we don't know. And then, in daily life, we rely on faith constantly, though we do not usually call it that, right? So sometimes people say, I don't like faith, I'm not a religious person, I don't like faith, I don't have any faith. But much of what we accept and act upon is not something we have verified personally, but rather something we trust based on reasoning, habit, or the reliability of others. For example, in education, you learn mathematics, biology, or history without reproving every explanation. It's not like, the teacher said so, no, let me check first. No way, right? Whatever information we get from the books, from our teacher, or we don't rerun every experiment. We read somewhere, we put this chemical together with that, this is what's going to happen. Not like, no, I have no faith. I'm going to try this for myself. We're not doing that. Or researching every event. We didn't do that when we went to school. We trust the accumulated knowledge passed down through teachers and texts. Number one. In medicine, when the doctor prescribes medication, we generally take it without reviewing all the clinical trials ourselves, trusting the physician's training, the pharmacist's accuracy, and the standards of the medical system. When would we be able to take a medicine? First we have to do all this research. No, we just trust it. We don't trust it blindly. There's a reason why we trust, but still. In food safety, we buy groceries without testing each item for poison or contamination, right? We just trust. It keeps us alive. Maybe it's a little bit too long, but I want to get a sense, so often people say, faith, I don't have, but we have faith in everything. In food safety, we don't, check. We rely instead on the regulations and the reputation of sellers. In finance, we deposit money in banks or transfer it electronically, trusting that the digital records are secure and accurate, even though we never see the physical exchange, right? You have this much money on the bank. I hope so, right? I never see it there. Or in infrastructure, when crossing a bridge or driving on a highway, we do not inspect its structure ourselves, but rely on the expertise of engineers and inspectors. So honestly, what we say we know, there's very little we know. Let's face it. So then when you encounter Buddhism, and people say, but I don't know whether there's reincarnation, it's like faith is not enough. Huh? Last time you checked the road you crossed, did you check that it's safe? Honestly, we do it all the time. And there's so many other examples. The day we were born, the date of birth. Are you sure you were born on that day? No, we trust our parents that they didn't lie to us. So there's so many examples. Even in news and journalism, nowadays we don't trust as much as we used to maybe, but we do rely on reputable outlets to report events from distant places we cannot verify directly, trusting in their networks and standards of accuracy. You see? So we trust. So what's the big deal that we start off with? We're so good at it already, though we don't call it faith. But we believe in this, we believe in that. The point is that faith is not something alien to us. It's a daily necessity. In fact, most of what we think we know rests on a kind of trust and belief. I know it because it says it on Google. Wikipedia says so. That's not knowledge, that's just knowing the facts. but not knowing whether it's true or not. What Buddhism emphasizes is that our faith in the Dharma should be of this kind, reasonable, well-founded, and open to verification through our own analysis and experience. So important. So it's okay to have faith, but to be still open and to make adjustments, to be skeptical at the same time, that's fine. We are like that in our daily life as well. I trust this food is safe, but every now and then we may check what pesticides were used, for instance, for these apples. So we are open and we're skeptical, but still not to the degree that we no longer cross bridges or we stop taking medicine. For this reason, Nagarjuna highlights discerning faith as one of the indispensable conditions for entering into Dharma practice, yet also as one that is difficult to develop. If we truly possessed, and that's the reason now, if we truly possessed discerning faith in the Dharma, it would fundamentally transform the way we live. Convinced that the Dharma is the sole method for attaining liberation and Buddhahood, we would no longer allow our days to slip away in distraction and idleness. We have some faith, of course we do. We're here, right? But the fact, for instance, this precious human rebirth, it won't come again. It's not easily attained again. It's not wasted. That's when we're like, I'm going to be okay, right? In this life I can't practice that much, but I'll definitely do more in my next life. Or I'll start next week to just get that work done or something, right? We're very good at procrastinating. So the thing is, if we really were convinced 100% of the Dharma, we wouldn't waste any opportunity. We would not allow ourselves to dwell in anger or, let our attachment just run wild. We just wouldn't do it. So trust, we have some degree of faith, but here it's like a different type, right? So trusting fully in the law of karma and its effect, we would naturally avoid harmful actions. So no harmful actions. And stop accumulating non-virtue. With confidence that the Dharma brings freedom not only from suffering, but from every kind of limitation, we would dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly to study, reflection, and meditation, giving special emphasis to cultivating great compassion and bodhicitta. Yeah. So we're doing already something, but I'm sure there's room for improvement. And as the stronger our faith, right? And if you take other examples, if you have faith, if you do this, you can get completely cured from cancer, for instance. You just find out you have cancer, you've got that terrible cancer in your body, and there's this one thing, if you do that religiously, you'll be cured. That's all you do. You want to get rid of it, right? Right now we have afflictions. They're like a cancer. We have the cancer of all cancers that creates every cancer. Our misconception, of course, giving rise to other afflictions, giving rise to suffering, such as in the form of diseases and so forth. So we have something much worse than cancer. Cancer can only kill us in this life, can only create us suffering in this life. Our misconception can give us misery for many lives to come, right? So we think about this. So we would dedicate ourselves wholeheartedly, wouldn't do anything else. Especially with the emphasis on cultivating great compassion and bodhicitta. These qualities enable us to actualize our fullest potential. Think about it. Our Buddha nature, we have everything to become a Buddha. So we would never miss an opportunity to cherish and benefit other sentient beings. Wow, sentient beings! Annoying, great! Wow. And I'm just like that. I mean, I'm just like that. I miss opportunities all the time. Like, oh, annoying sentient beings. Wow. Discerning faith, therefore, acts as an inner compass, constantly guiding us toward what truly matters and leaving no room for complacency. So we have faith in the Dharma, yes, but it could become better, even that. I mean, it's clear. The text is not saying, oh, your life sucks and you're just wasting your time. It's not saying that. It's just saying there's room for improvement. Yeah. And it's difficult to have that kind of faith. I mean, it's difficult to be like His Holiness. His Holiness is that kind of person. Everything is for the Dharma. Nothing is done not for the Dharma. Impossible. It's just Dharma, Dharma, there's nothing else. Right? And that's why we're so lucky to have these examples, to see how it's done. And that doesn't mean you have to leave your life behind. It's all mental. That's the good thing. You don't have to buy a fancy Dharma car or something I can't afford. It's all mental. If it was physical, it'd be difficult. It's all mental. Yeah. We just need more discipline, more joyous effort. Yeah. Okay. So again, what did he say? It's very difficult to find these opportunities. So we have them already. Let's face it, we all have a precious human rebirth. No excuse. Secondly, we have some faith in the Dharma. We have some. So we're quite lucky. Bodhicitta and great compassion, they're even more difficult, obviously. So it's easier of those, the first we definitely have. The second, Third and fourth, okay, now it's getting harder, right? Bodhicitta and great compassion. We have a facsimile. I guess if you're American or English, probably a difference, but never mind. But you have a facsimile, that one. You have, I guess, something that is similar, but it's not actual bodhicitta or great compassion, right? But still, no reason not to continue to practice. As I said, the only way to actually generate the real deal, like the actual mind, is to just doing it right now. They're going through the motions. Anyway, but what does Nagarjuna say? Beyond these, the compendium of sutras, so Ayya Nagarjuna's compendium of sutras explains that generating the awakening mind or bodhicitta is even more difficult. Yeah, we know this. This is not going to be explained because we already went through it. While a precious human rebirth and faith are necessary conditions for practicing the Dharma in general, bodhicitta is what is required to enter the bodhisattva path, and its rarity underscores its preciousness. The text further provides detailed explanations showing that within the bodhisattva's training, the cultivation of great compassion, the principal cause of bodhicitta, is itself extremely difficult. Once we clearly understand that Buddhahood, what Buddhahood truly means, aspiring to attain it may not be so difficult, since we naturally incline to wish for the best possible state for ourselves. So for ourselves, we would want to become Buddhas, right? Honestly, but we won't become Buddhas for our own benefit. If you hear, what does it mean to generate bodhicitta? The wish to become enlightened, but for the benefit of all sentient beings. So the wish to become enlightened is not that difficult. You hear, so the best state. We're used to being best. We always want the best possible for ourselves, so we would naturally want the best. The real challenge lies in aspiring to attain it primarily for the sake of others. That's why it's difficult. Great compassion. This is because developing great compassion is extremely difficult. A difficulty rooted in our deeply ingrained habit of self-centeredness. If we weren't self-centered, it'd be so easy. If we didn't have the root misconception, we wouldn't be self-centered. And then great compassion, in an hour or two, you develop it. Yeah. So that's why it makes sense. We have to eliminate that root misconception. It's in the way to great compassion. We can. The beauty is our mind is so plastic, right? Is it plastic? Is that the adjective? It's plastic. Plastic? I guess plastic. Yeah, it's so plastic. I didn't want to say the word plastic, so I used the D instead of the C, but yeah, okay, plastic. Our mind is so plastic that we can actually generate great compassion before eliminating its main obstacle. Because we can reduce the main obstacle, which is self-centeredness. Reduce it to such a degree that great compassion can develop. But eventually, to move on from there, we have to directly realize emptiness, of course. But that's the beauty of it, that we can develop already now. However, let's face it, it is so hard. Because we're so used to just cherishing ourselves. But the best thing, again, is to just again and again, just force yourself, basically. I mean, force yourself doesn't mean in an aggressive way, but once you're convinced that this is really benefiting my mind, then we talked about this before, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche gives these beautiful instructions when he says, when you close a door, visualize you're doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings. When you eat, think I'm doing it for the benefit of sentient beings. If we can just make a habit every 5 minutes to have just that quick thought, it makes all the difference. Let's say once an hour, even once a day. Once a day. Start in the morning and then maybe finish it. That already makes a difference. So with your practice in the morning, but then even if we can then throughout the day, put your phone, like set an alarm every hour. It makes a subtle sound. Don't want to annoy too many people. So, a subtle sound, and you remind yourself, I'm doing this for the benefit of all sentient beings. Right? Maybe they have a bodhicitta app, or maybe you want to develop a bodhicitta app. That every time there's a Om Mani Padme Hum or something coming from your phone, reminds you to generate. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe it already exists. I won't be surprised. Does it already exist?
Mm-hmm.
It does?
And it's really annoying when so many people in class have it at different times.
Oh, how does it work? It's so annoying when many people have it at different times. Yeah, I'm repeating that for the camera. But how does it work? So it's just reminding you to generate bodhicitta? Like an alarm in your phone, or?
I don't know, but I know a lot of people that have this gong once an hour.
Oh.
And then they...
Just a mindfulness bell.
So whether that's the mindfulness app or a bodhicitta app, but you need mindfulness for bodhicitta. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be annoying. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's just give you a little, like a big shock or something, like electric wire or whatever. But just to remind you to generate in that mind, okay, for all sentient beings. It's just the power of our mind. The more you generate certain thoughts, then the more they become second nature. So it's not about forcing yourself as in like repressing something. It's just using the plastic nature of our mind, of our brain. If you again and again develop certain thoughts, eventually they become second nature. Of course, it's important to also meditate on great compassion and so forth. I mean, I'm not just saying, otherwise it's silly. But if you meditate in the morning, you really try, you mentioned before, and then based on that practice in the morning, to really feel it, to do it as if you were to do it for the first time, give your very best, that a strong emotion arises. And then that emotion you remind yourself of every now and then, once an hour or whatever. I'm pretty sure you're on the right way and it becomes stronger. And every time you do it, then in the morning, the next morning, in turn your practice may become stronger. You may have to read, of course, teachings or listen to teachings to inspire you further, to emotionally push you even further, because inspiration is a very powerful emotional state. But then based on that inspiration, when you sit down to practice again, it's like, whoa, right? And the beauty is, Ban said something in one of his messages, and the messages he posted online. He said something like, it felt really silly to think that all sentient beings were with my mothers. It felt like so odd. But he just thought, okay, I'll just do it. I'll just try it. I do this, I'm brushing my teeth for the benefit of all sentient beings. And as a result, he felt so good, so calm. That's the good thing. If you felt miserable and it would throw you into a depression, I mean, no one would use that app. But the good thing is you feel better than it makes you feel better than anything else. You're not worrying about yourself in that moment, which is the main reason we suffer so much. So if you can sincerely generate that deep sense for all sentient beings, like they were your children or your best friends or whatever, it just feels good. Yeah. Anyway, once we clearly understand that Buddhahood truly means aspiring to attain it may not be so difficult. Oh yeah, I've read that already. So, but doing it for all sentient beings, that's of course so difficult. That's so hard. So we started on page 53, right? Yeah. Okay. I have to make sure I don't run out of material. Can't go too fast.
No.
I have altogether, it's 120, or almost 130 pages now, but I haven't really, I have to work through the next, I got to until page 85, but I have to still work through it, and since I have to also teach another class, it's a little tight, but I'm trying, yeah. Anyway, do you have any questions so far? This is not, yeah, go ahead.
One question I had was about the Pure Lands. Because we are always talking about the celestial realm, and the Pure Land kind of sounds similar to me, but for some reason we say the Pure Land is great for practice, but the celestial realm is not.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that's an important question. Okay, why, what is the difference between the celestial realm and the pure realm? So, just to repeat it for the recording, you're saying that the celestial realms are usually seen as a distraction, seen as not desirable. I mean, we shouldn't wish to be reborn there, but the pure realms are said to be conducive for Dharma practice and therefore something to strive for, to be reborn there. What's the difference? Why is that? Yeah. All right. Yeah, there's a difference, big difference basically. First of all, it's actually not that easy to be reborn in the pure realm, but then it's not that easy to be reborn in the celestial realm either. I really can't say which one is more difficult, but I suppose it's more difficult to be reborn in the pure realm. Because it's so conducive for Dharma practice. So you need special, you need great virtue to take birth there. But I also know from one of my teachers, Geshe Kelsang, he says the pure realm of Abhirati, for instance, of Akshobhya, the Buddha's Akshobhya, that is, I mean, he's done a lot of research from the sutras, which very much emphasize the fact that it's not that difficult to be reborn there in comparison, but it's still difficult. It's still difficult. So there's certain things you can do. You have to do certain practices in this life and so forth. Anyway, that's just about the difficulty. And there's some that's even more difficult to be reborn in, but they're totally conducive for Dharma practice. I mean, everyone is practicing. Everyone is practicing the Dharma. There is less suffering, that's for sure. And you see, some people would say, I don't want to be reborn there because it's slower. The thing is, in the human realm, actually, you progress faster because it's so difficult to practice the Dharma here, right? It's just because it's more difficult to practice the Dharma here. Therefore, they say in the human realm, you progress faster. Okay, now that's a good reason to be reborn in the pure realm, but unless you, like a really advanced practitioner, there's always danger, you leave it all behind. In the pure realm, once you're there, you won't leave the Dharma behind. You won't, that's it. You know, you've got the teachings, you've got the environment, you've got all the conditions, and I don't know whether it's impossible to fall down from them, but it seems pretty much that it is. But it takes a long time. So therefore, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he's not interested to be reborn in the pure realm. He's not interested. He wants to go to the, he wants to be in the terrible places. I'm pretty sure he's in other places. But you know, in the human realm where he makes a huge difference in the sense that it's difficult here. So not just His Holiness, many advanced practitioners would possibly choose the human realm not because they want to be quickly done, but they feel they can make a greater difference. It's more of a challenge. But to be honest, I'm not a fan. I'd rather be in a pure land. Because I know my own mind. Right? I know my own mind. I can't trust it. I can't trust my own mind. I don't know. I'm doing it now, but who knows when I die and some negative karma ripens and I'm reborn somewhere else and, you know, everything is basically, I don't know. I have no idea. I have a crappy mind. I was born with a crappy mind. I know I have some really bad habits. I was born a thief. Yeah, I was. I stole when I was little. I mean, besides shops, and that came later when I was a teenager. But when I was very little, I didn't hesitate to steal from my parents, sweets and whatever. Yeah, I was a thief. I think I was a thief. And I was very proud of how good I could lie. I could lie really well. People would believe me. I'd be like, Dad, it wasn't me. Honestly, it's scary. I had some really bad. I wasn't a good girl, a good babe. I'm a good child. Really, I had these two habits: stealing and what? Lying. I was very good at lying. Yeah. And like my parents always thought I was such a good girl. I didn't need a babysitter. The moment my parents were out of the house, the whole neighborhood kids would come. And we'd be like partying. It was terrible. I was such a naughty child. They never knew that. Because I'd be like, now, Mom and Dad, I make sure my little sister and I would go. We make my little sister smoke when she was 5. I was 7. Oh my God, can you just cut this out of the video? No, seriously, I was really not a good girl. And my parents thought we were great because I cleaned up everything after we're done, The cigarettes, they were lying around at home, and so we had like a little garden house, so we got my little sister there, and they had alcohol in the bar, they had like a bar, and we drank. But mainly my sister, she was the smallest, she had to drink. I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but it happened. I was not a good girl, and I didn't have a babysitter because my parents thought I was so good. But I wasn't. No, I was terrible. I was not a good person. I don't think so. And then as a teenager, I was not a good person. No, I was not, I don't remember bullying, but I'm pretty sure I bullied some girls. I probably repressed that, So I was not a good person. And then I met the Dharma, unfortunately. Oof. Who knows what happened to me then. And so I'm thinking, if I die with all these imprints I created at the beginning of my life and these habits, and who knows? I don't feel safe. I want these pure realms. But they're difficult. So I'm a fan. I'm a personal fan of the pure realms. So therefore, they're really important because they create all these conditions. So just previously I worked on a book by Geshe Kelsang, like a little book with like pictures, and it's said to be really good to see these images and get to know them, so you generate the wish to be reborn there, because that's one of the main causes, to wish to be reborn there. I mean, we want to be reborn in the places we're familiar with. Honestly, to be reborn in a place we have no idea of, who wants that? So usually it's like we're attached to this world. And Geshe Kelsang, so beautifully, they put together this book that summarizes everything that's important, like of these pure realms. They describe them beautifully with illustrations from a tanka. And it's just a small book. It's going to be published very soon in Tibetan, in English, and maybe not Chinese. No, I think it's first only Tibetan and English. So, yeah, that's in order to generate the wish to go there. And again, I would like to, but it's not that easy, yeah. Anyway, that's the difference. Yeah, Abhirati. I'm a fan of Abhirati, but because I received teachings on Abhirati, on this Akshobhya pure realm. But there are many other ones. There's Sukhavati of Amitabha, I think, Amitabha, and so forth. Akshobhya is Abhirati, and Sukhavati, and there are other types, many different types. Yeah, very conducive to practice, but it takes a little longer, they say. Did I answer your question?
Kind of. I still don't know, like, when I hear description of both realms, the conditions sound similar.
They are similar, you're right. But you're right. But one main distinction is that one is very conducive for the Dharma practice and the other one isn't, because there's so many distractions.
But what makes it conducive? Is there like special teachers?
Yeah,
or?
Special teachers. You always receive teachings. Everyone around you is practicing. They're inspiring you. You can't help it, but you want to practice. You're in this incredible environment where, although you have a body that is very conducive, you don't need to sleep. In some realms, you don't need to eat. But even if you want to eat, food will manifest, so you don't waste that much time on it. But yeah, you can easily leave and receive teachings from other realms and so forth. So there are a lot of explanations where the Dharma is in your face, for lack of a better word. It's kind of like, wow, there's nothing else that matters. The Dharma is ever present. Whereas in the celestial realm, you have the comforts you find in those realms. However, too many distractions that are not necessarily, I mean, there's possibly some practice, but usually you're just distracted. There's too much pleasure.
And are they part of the 6 realms, or are they outside of samsara?
Usually they're said to be outside. pure. The word, usually they're said to be pure. But there's a little bit of like, do you have the truth of suffering and so forth? There's a bit of like some disagreement, and I don't remember all the details now. But usually the highest pure realms, because the word pure here means not created by karma and afflictions. Pure and impure, contaminated, uncontaminated. So an impure, this is an impure realm, because this is the result of our karma and afflictions. Right? So therefore, yeah, pure realm, it would not be one of the celestial realms in the sense of like samsaric realm. Yeah. Yes, please.
I have a question about the leisures and freedoms.
Yes, okay.
I realized when you describe all those conditions, like being born at a time when the Buddha has, teaching, you're still active and stuff. It makes me realize that even though I believe in rebirth, I guess I do assume that I will be reborn on the earth in a sequentially the time that we know. So what that's implying to me, as I reflect on what you're saying, is that we could be reborn on any time frame, in any galaxy, any condition from life to life. Which
Yes.
means we can be reborn in the future, whatever we think of as the future. We could be reborn in the past.
Oh no, that doesn't work.
Okay, well, yeah.
Oh, okay, now I get it.
Clarify.
All right, okay, I clarified that. Okay, yes. All right, that's a good question. Talking about the leisures or leisures?
American right?
Oh, okay, wait a minute. So I chose one that makes sense. Okay, so I'll say leisures now. Try a new one. So the leisures. Talking about the leisures and the opportunities, or the what did I call them? The opportunities. Talking about them because I said here one of them was we're born at a time when the Buddha was born. That makes it sound that we're not just reborn sequentially, from now on in the future, in a different realm or a different existence, but I could also be reborn in the past or in a totally different time in the future. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So yeah, you're right. It could mean like, oh, it's possible to be born at a time when a Buddha didn't come. That's actually a really weird thing, a really weird point. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. So being born at a time when the Buddha had come means our existence, but then the opposite would mean being born at a time when the Buddha has not come. So in particular, Buddha Shakyamuni, would that mean I'm reborn 5,000 years ago when Buddha Shakyamuni has not come? No, that's not what it means. It's good that you bring it up. That's not what it means. It means rather to be born in a place which happens to be at a time when a Buddha has not come. So for instance, in this world, 2,600 years ago, Buddha Shakyamuni had come and the teachings are still available. People still practice them, they're still available. But there are other galaxies, other world systems where they say also Buddhas exist. In some world systems you have a Buddha like Buddha Shakyamuni who is described as a founding Buddha. The teachings previously didn't exist and were introduced by that Buddha. Reintroduced, you could say, because they existed in the past but then disappeared. Or depending on how old this or new this planet is, if it's newly formed planet, then maybe it exists there for the first time, or a newly formed world. Like some of the texts talk about world systems coming just as we know it from modern science. Therefore, there are other galaxies, of course, as we know, thousands of them, and in them you have world systems like ours, and maybe some Buddhas like Shakyamuni Buddha are teaching right now. Or they're about to come in the next 1,000 years. Or their teachings have disappeared and there's a time when so to be born in a place that happened to be at a time when a particular Buddha's teachings were still around. That's what this means. Not in terms of going back in time or forward. Yeah, that's important. No, time would still be considered linear in Buddhism. Sometimes people ask whether time is considered to be circular, but that would be terrible, because that would mean you become a Buddha and then you start all over again, right? No, it's linear in the sense that seeds become sprouts. They don't turn back to become seeds again. Or babies are born from mothers. It's not like they return to the womb, right? It's not like you are born old and then you become younger and younger and younger and then you disappear in the womb. No. So there is a kind of a linear sequence to it, yes. Yeah. And time is measured by those changes that are linear. So time is labeled on the basis of the changes, right? That's why I believe, this is just my theory, I'm fascinated that I'm that old, that time flies. And that when I was a child, it wasn't. It felt so long. And my theory, and this is based on what I read, but my understanding, I could be wrong, but I think it's because of what I read, is that when we're children, we change so quickly. Our brain, we grew up, we made such incredible changes that because of these changes, time seemed to be longer because we have, like for instance, if you do something every day, you do something different, then that 1 week seems really long. But if you do the same daily, the same thing, then it feels like 1 week is gone in no time. During COVID, I didn't do anything but prepared translations for His Holiness's teachings. So sometimes I'm thinking, these 2 years felt like 2 months. Because I did the same all the time. I was just at home in Germany and I just translated text. That's all I did basically. So the point is, if you're younger, there are lots of things happening and therefore it feels time stretches. Yeah. Whereas when you're older, you're in your rhythm, you do the same thing pretty much. If you were traveling the world, I think it would feel differently. So the point therefore is that time is experienced differently. Therefore, the change depends on the changes. Time is labeled, we label time on the basis of the changes. Okay, that's it. So time doesn't exist in and of itself, but it does have a linear sequence because the way things change. Seed becomes a sprout and doesn't turn backwards. That's my limited understanding of time. Okay, great. Important questions, both of these, yeah. Yes, please.
So just one more
Oh,
thing
yes,
to
yes,
clarify.
of course.
So does that mean that from life to life, we could be reborn in all different galaxies?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, okay.
Absolutely, we can be. Does that mean we can be born in all sorts of galaxies? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm trying to find the messages from people who've also asked questions. Absolutely. But it very much depends on your aspiration. That is really important. Like, remember I talked about in one of the last classes, one of the perfections are the perfections of aspiration. And be careful what you wish for. That is really interesting. The thing is, the power of our mind is such. If we aspire for something long enough, it will happen, unless it's totally impossible. If it's something possible, if it's something that is possible, you accumulate the causes and conditions for it to happen, and you aspire to do it, it will happen, sooner or later. So let's take simple aspiration. You want to go to university, and you study for that. So you have this aspiration. You therefore, of course, with wisdom, you do whatever is necessary, you'll be able to go to university sooner or later. If not in this life, then possibly in the next life. What does Dharma practice start with? Like teaching, like especially of the universal vehicle. What does it start with? With the aspiration to become enlightened. It's the aspiration to become fully enlightened. That is the first step towards the Mahayana, or the path of the universal vehicle. It's all aspirations. So the aspirations are central. And if you want to be reborn in the pure realm and you wish for it long enough, and you apply the causes and conditions, long enough. It doesn't help like just a moment before death. You wanted to always be reborn in the United States or somewhere, and then last thought is like pure realm, a little bit, too many aspirations in a different direction. But even being reborn, the fact we're reborn is because we want to. If we didn't have, when we die, this is part of the 12 links. Are you familiar with the 12 links of dependent arising? When we die, at the time when mind and body separate, there is a sense, because of our self-centeredness, because of our perception of I, there's a sense I'm disappearing. And there's the wish to exist. I want to exist. I want to exist. And there we are, back to cyclic existence. Because we want to. If we could just let go in that moment. But you can only let go if you have removed the root misconception. Because that is such a subtle level of mind that we really can't control. No control over it. And since our root misperception is so strong, that root misconception, our root ignorance, it'll want us to exist again. If you have removed your ignorance, you won't have that wish. And you won't be reborn in samsara. It's that. It's all aspiration. It all comes down to aspiration. So be careful what you wish for. Be sure that the power of aspiration is used wisely. Yes, please. Oh, you also had a question. Sorry, go ahead.
So even at the moment of death, even the slightest, even like a single thought or the slightest fear can manifest as another birth.
Even just the slightest thought or the slightest fear can manifest as a. It's not that easy because if you never had an aspiration to be reborn anywhere. Never in your entire life. You don't believe in reincarnation, for instance. If someone doesn't believe in reincarnation, then a single thought could actually be, because that's the only aspiration you have just before you're reborn, before you die, have the thought, oh, I wish I'd be born I wish I was a bird. And that could actually cause you to be reborn there. But if you believe in reincarnation, then the aspiration, you have the chance to now, may I be reborn where the Dharma is present, may I be reborn where, if you can develop all these thoughts just before you die, or even before that, now, once in the future, because we don't know what's first, tomorrow or death. So to have that thought, like, may I be reborn in the Pura, may I be reborn wherever I can practice the Dharma, may all the circumstances, that's the power of the mind, don't waste it. So one single, it depends. If it's a really strong aspiration, sure. That's why when we die, we have to be super careful, right? Like not to be aggressive when we die, and our thoughts can be very powerful in that moment. So like, oh, I wish I would born in a place I could beat them up or something, right? And be careful. Really, our thoughts, it's important to control them. As I just said, when we die, there's the wish to be reborn as part of the 12 links. Grasping and craving, that's what it means. Before we die, of the 12 links, there's craving and grasping. And grasping is grasping at existence. So that, of course, we can't control unless we remove the root misconception. But before that, we can already direct the mind. Start now. That's the best. Now's the best. So through again and again, aspiring. That's what bodhisattvas do. They constantly aspire. They constantly, may my mere presence help other sentient beings. Sometimes we're wondering why some texts are studied for hundreds and thousands of years and other texts don't. They may be better. Who knows? Well, it also depends on the aspirations of the author. May my book benefit many generations to come. May it stay around. I'm pretty sure karma is basically aspiration, right? I want to beat that person up. We don't call that aspiration, we call it a wish. But it's basically it's an aspiration. The mind wants to harm someone. The mind wants to benefit someone. The mind wants this, the mind wants that. Sometimes it's an exaggerated wishing that we call afflicted desire or attachment. But there's also level-headed, non-extreme wishing to be of benefit to other sentient beings, wishing to be reborn. If you can utilize the power of that mind, and again, it's kind of like ordering something from Amazon. I want this and not that, right? Click the button. Well, don't click the button, but instead generate the aspiration. That's where we're going. That's the power of the mind. Let me just take him, go ahead.
It's about the words abandoning the Dharma, wrong views.
Oh, we come to that.
We come later.
Yeah, later.
Okay.
Abandoning the Dharma, it's a huge one.
Yeah.
I have to discuss that in detail. Yeah, it's part of that. It's like a whole section on abandoning the Dharma. But that also needs to be understood. If the Dharma doesn't interest you, don't worry. You know, it's not like something very specific. It means something very specific. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just something arising is that it seems like there's like a combination of, in response to what you said, there's like dual aspirations where, and this is something that I sometimes struggle with, which is like focusing on investigating the root misconception, and at the same time another aspiration, which is purifying the mind and the thoughts of the state. So is it like really good to focus on both?
Oh, so this balance between, on one hand, focusing on the root misconception, and and then also focusing on like other sentient beings, or were we reborn? It seems like a difficult. How do you balance the two? So there's wisdom and method, actually. Basically, what you're asking is the wisdom aspect of the path and the method aspect of the path. So the wisdom is about our root misconception, how do phenomena really exist, and then the method is kind of aspiration in the positive sense, wanting to be a benefit of all sentient beings, wanting to become enlightened and so forth. Yeah, we need to strike a balance. I mean, when we do our practice, spend some time on focusing what is the I, how does it exist, learn about emptiness, but balance it with the path. And that's what Acharya Chandrakirti does in this text. It's very much, it really talks about this balance, saying, yes, emptiness is important, and Arya Nagarjuna did an incredible job explaining it in the fundamental wisdom. But it's difficult to keep the balance if you just focus on such a text. So therefore, Acharya Chandrakirti, I offer a text where you have both together. So not forgetting the method side and not forgetting the wisdom side. And of course, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for years now, he has been saying, my main practice is emptiness and bodhicitta. So he's advising us, try to find a balance. And if it's just a temporal balance, half an hour emptiness, half an hour bodhicitta. If that's too long, 5 minutes emptiness, 5 minutes bodhicitta or method. Really not ignore one over the other. Try to strike a balance. And yeah, that's challenging. But that's like eating food is challenging. A balance between proteins and carbohydrates, and like don't always get it right. But usually we try to kind of balance it. So it's similar. Our entire life is about balance, right? So it's just one more balance we need to grow accustomed to. But there are also some questions. Let me just quickly check the discussion group. There's one. What does it mean clear? Someone asked, Banu asked, could you please explain what clear means in the context of the mind being clear and aware? What does it mean? Consciousness is defined as that which is clear and knowing, or clear and aware. Clear and aware is clear. Clear and aware is, you know what that means. But what does clear mean? What does it mean that the mind is clear? Yes?
Not distracted.
Pardon?
Not distracted.
Not distracted. Well, but our consciousnesses are all clear and aware. But some of them are distracted, right? Yeah, so it can have that connotation of being pure and free from any limitations. That is true, but as part of the definition of consciousness. So consciousness or mind or, whatever you want to call it, awareness, especially consciousness, is usually defined as that which is clear and knowing. So it's aware, clear and aware. So it's aware. We know that the mind experiences things. Okay, that is clear. That we know. But what does it mean to be clear?
No obstructions?
No. Because my mind has obstructions, but it's still clear.
Then the final nature has no obstructions.
No. Non-obstructive. Oh yeah, that's true. Non-obstructive. First of all, it's not obstructive like matter. Matter is obstructive, right? Matter is obstructive. But it is another reason. Think of a clear mirror. What happens to a clear mirror? What happens?
Perfect reflection.
Things are reflected in it. If I ask you, think of your breakfast, does it appear to your mind? Think of your breakfast. I'm saying, think of your breakfast. Take the mind. It appears, right? Think of your mother. Think of your hometown. Something appears to your mind. So the mind can always have something appear to it. So the word clear here means like a clear mirror. If it's muddy and dirty, nothing can be reflected in it. Nothing can appear in the mirror. So similarly here, clear means it's like a mirror. You use like a material, a physical object. So just as a mirror can reflect anything when it's clear, to your mind, anything can appear. Things that exist and things that don't exist. And even now, when I look around this room, the whiteboard on the other side of the room, it appears to my eye consciousness. It doesn't have to enter my brain or something. You don't have to kind of hit me with the whiteboard. It appears to my mind. And there's the whole physical aspect, the retina, it's upside down, like the scientists, how they talk about the eye organ. Well, yeah, that also happens. But then eventually, once the physical aspect has happened, then the eye consciousness arises and something appears to it. That's clear. So something appears to the mind, always something appears to the mind, and the mind is always aware of something, conscious of something. That's the nature of the mind. And that's not the physical. It depends on the physical to do so. But it's not. We label that experiencing entity to which something appears, we label that mind. Okay. Was there ever a first Buddha? Was there ever a first human being that ate the wrong apple and ended up in samsara? No. Right? I mean, I'm not making fun of Christianity, please don't get me wrong, but what about Buddhism? Was there a first Buddha? A first human being? Was there a beginning? No. No, there's no beginning. It's a little disconcerting, I think. We're so used to a beginning, a middle, and an end. We like to look at the world as very solid. This is the beginning, it's very difficult to think endless in both directions. But we're good with numbers. Numbers are endless. There's no beginning to numbers in minus, right? Minus, like like minus, is there a beginning to -1, -2? We can go endlessly both ways, right? I can't even say it properly. I don't have the vocabulary, but numbers are endless.
Infinity.
Infinity, exactly. Infinity. Minus and plus in both directions, infinite. And even in other religions, I mean, there may be a beginning to human beings, okay, according to the Bible, like Adam and Eve. Though the question is, if Adam and Eve were the only human beings at that time, he looks into it, then it'd be incest. There'll be incest. I mean, if we all, because you'd have to get together. How do you get from two human beings to more? But never mind. There's some theory that there were other tribes and so forth, but I don't know. I have no idea. But let's say let's take that literally, and there really were Adam and Eve, and there was God. Well, when did God start? When was the beginning of God? Who created God? Either God was created, there was a time God didn't exist, or God always existed. So no matter how you turn it around, there's always endless. What about the Big Bang? Was that beginning of the physical world? Okay. Was there nothing before the Big Bang? No, there was something physical. So again, we cannot avoid infinity. Therefore, was there ever a first Buddha? I'm afraid not. I'm afraid there wasn't one. No first Buddha. First Buddha on this planet, definitely, but not in the universe itself. And then Linda asks, why are asuras not part of the unfavorable states of being born? Are they categorized under celestial beings, since they're sometimes called demigods or jealous gods? Okay, yes, they're also part of the celestial realm. They're part of the celestial realm. I wouldn't want to be a jealous god, but it's still, I think they must have some pleasures. Otherwise, it wouldn't be part of the celestial realm. So the whole jealous part, that's nasty. But I'm pretty sure they had some great, fun and so forth. So they can be categorized. I don't have the same suffering except for that jealousy. All right, great question. And then B has one more. According to Mingyu Rinpoche, it's easy to be reborn in Amitabha Pure Land. easy for Mingyur Rinpoche or easy? No, but because I mean he's like so amazing. But no, I'm sure he means in general. Yeah. So according to Mingyur Rinpoche, it's easy to be reborn in Amitabha Pure Land, and from there one can easily go to any other Pure Lands. Wow. He said we need to set the aspiration intention to be born in Amitabha Pure Land and do a short practice at least 4 times in this lifetime. Oh, just 4. That is the minimum that is needed, and it takes much longer to attain enlightenment, not just a little longer. Oh yeah, in the Pure Lands it takes much longer. But you're safe. You're safe from falling down again. And I'm just saying, because if I knew I was so disciplined and wouldn't need to choose that, but therefore, yeah. So thank you, B, for that. So Mingyur Rinpoche said about Amitabha the same thing. I just know that someone else called Geshe Kelsang, one of my teachers, he very much emphasizes Abhirati, which is the Akshobhya Pure Land. And he says, yes, it's not as hard as we may think, but again, also emphasizing the wish to do so and doing the practice. Yeah. Great. Good questions. Any more questions? Yes, please.
Is this pure lands or
Yeah.
pure from karma?
Pure land in terms of, pure as in karma, but mainly the affliction. So, for instance, I guess we could understand it that way. Like, this has been created by karma and afflictions, right? So the pure realms, they're usually created by a Buddha's pure mind. So not controlled, mainly by the afflictions and the resulting contaminated karma. Yeah, in that way. But if I can make it a little bit more difficult, right? Because if a Buddha comes here, does this become a pure realm? Because it's a Buddha exists here, like Buddha Shakyamuni. Of course, these pure realms, they are realms that were created by the Buddha's mind, through the aspirations of a Buddha's mind. So they're actually physical places, except we can't see them. Right now, we wouldn't be able to perceive them. So you need the karmic causes to be reborn there. But this place here is created by our own karma and afflictions. So it becomes really difficult if you think, okay, for all of us, this is impure. For all of us, it's a result of our actions. And we experience it similarly, but the emphasis is on similar. We have our individual experience. So what does that mean? If a Buddha comes here, is this a pure realm? I would say yes. A Buddha experiences this as pure. We perceive it because, there is no objective reality, right? It all fits with the fact that there is no objective reality. There's just this subjective. There's what I see, there's what you see. There could be a pure realm right here, I just can't see it. Right? In this place, there could be a hell realm, I just don't perceive it. Sometimes the texts talk about the hell realm is in the middle of the earth. Well, somehow they knew there was hot in there. But honestly, that's more to get a better sense of it. I think it doesn't matter. It's like whatever you are and whatever karma ripens, if it's a hellish existence, it's a pure existence. Depends on your own mind. So therefore, as it says, this very famous Buddhist saying, when it says, if you want to know what your mind was like in the past, look at your existence now. If you want to know what your existence will be in the future, look at your mind right now. So right now, we're creating the causes and conditions to be reborn in the place that we perceive as pure or not. Right? And therefore we engage in certain practices, advanced practices in Tantra, where you train your mind to see things purely as one of those causes and conditions that can be beneficial. But of course we have to be careful here unless we're ready to do so. Okay, anyway, that was a long lesson. I also feel a little bit tired today. Okay, great. Let's leave it here. Oh, no, time is up anyway. I thought it was a bit too early. No. Great. All right, let's leave it here. And great questions. And let's then dedicate whatever virtue we've accumulated. May it, of course, become a cause for our great lamas, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, but also all other great embodiments of the teachings to have very long and healthy lives. But may this also help us to possibly, if we wish to, be reborn in a pure realm and eventually attain a fully enlightened state of a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So with this in mind, let's recite the prayers. In the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay. Thank you, and have a nice evening.